Okay, Susan began her lean journey in 2014 while working as a case manager for the Department of Social and Health Services. After earning her green and black belt certifications, she set out to make excellence in government her life's work. Susan currently holds the role of Senior Continuous Improvement Consultant for Washington State's Department of Labor and Industries. Susan brings her passion for the Toyota way of leadership and its approach to continuous improvement, empowering, including, and inspiring all of the unique human beings that make up the fabric of our community. Her mission is that every person sees themselves as a valued scientific problem solver and partner in improving the things that matter to them. Without further ado, I'm so excited to hear this presentation. The floor is yours, Susan.
All right. Thank you so much, Talia. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to share my screen and hope for the best. Okay, can everyone see?
Yes, looks good.
Okay, great. Well, welcome to this time we'll have together today. My name is Susan Hayden, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And we're going to have about an hour today together talking about how self-reflection changes culture. And as Talia mentioned, we'll have about 15 minutes at the end for questions and answers. So we're going to be exploring how to use the PDCA Plan, Do, Check, Act model through making incremental changes on how we show up at work. And my hope is that what we learned today can be applied to any of the important relationships and interactions that you have outside of work. Okay, so I'm just trying to move there we go. Okay, all right. So let's get started on creating an organizational culture that we can be proud of. We're going to look at our goals for today. So our goals for today are that we will understand what self-reflection is. We will learn about the benefits of self-reflection. We're going to learn how to use the Plan, Do, Check, Act self-reflection tool. We will explore how to apply what we learned today outside of work. And we're hopefully going to have some fun. So I will review these at the end of our session to make sure that we've met them all. So what exactly is self-reflection? Well, self-reflection is a structured way to look at the results of our beliefs, attitudes, and actions, which add up to our behaviors with the purpose of learning from the experience. So it's a structured way to look at how we show up with the purpose of learning from the experience. And so according to this definition, I'd like our Results Washington friends to run a poll right now. According to this definition, do you currently practice self-reflection? And your options are yes, no, and I'm not sure. So it looks like we're running that poll. And then I cannot see the results. Can anyone else see the results?
Yeah, we have about 67% that have answered. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And
okay, thank you. Oh, there we go. Awesome. Okay, so yeah, about 69% say yes, 11% no, and 20% I'm not sure. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for participating. So John Dewey, who was an American philosopher, psychologist, and education reformer, said that we don't learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on experience. Now, the people that work for Toyota practice self-reflection as a daily practice in continuous improvement of processes and the continuous improvement of self. So this powerful practice by staff at every level is what drives Toyota's culture. And that said, the work that we are doing today can be applied to any kind of culture that you want to create. So what are some of the benefits of self-reflection? Well, in addition to changing culture, self-reflection builds self-awareness. Now, the first step in changing culture is being aware of how we show up at work. Self-reflection increases our coaching skills. So whether you're being coached or you're coaching others, self-reflection will help you practice and increase your effectiveness as a coach or as a coachee. Self-reflection fosters trust between staff. Now, we all have things to work on. And if we're all openly practicing self-reflection, that means we're all on the same boat. Self-reflection is very leveling as far as how we show up for each other. And if we can't agree on anything else, we can agree that working on stuff is important in order to improve ourselves and our workplace culture. Self-reflection helps us develop discipline. So like with anything, self-reflection is something you've just got to do. So the model I'm sharing today is one model. It's one option for providing a disciplined structure approach to self-reflection. And self-reflection grows leadership skills. Self-reflection is a powerful way to develop your leadership skills through knowing yourself better, knowing your colleagues better, knowing your direct reports better, and thereby building trust and gaining the respect of those around you. So, talking about changing culture, what do we mean by the word culture? Well, culture is said to be a set of behaviors that we see in the workplace. They're observable. So the Harvard Business Review says that culture is consistent, observable patterns of behaviors in organizations. So those consistent, observable patterns of behaviors in organizations could be about anything. It could be lean, it could be diversity, equity, and inclusion, change management, psychological safety, any behavior you can think of that contributes to a culture. So I'd like our moderators, please open the chat. I'd like you to think about looking at this definition of culture. Why is culture important to you? So let's have you go ahead and put what you're thinking in the chat right now.
All right. Are you able to see it, Susan, or did you want me to read it out to you? We're
Please,
getting a lot of action in here.
Yeah, please read it out. It's
Oh,
my brain doesn't go that fast. Thank you.
yeah, no, of course. Okay. Inclusion. Oh my gosh, it's going so fast. Inclusion, a sense of belonging, culture, oh wow. Honoring and appreciating differences, team building, creates the space people want to be in, identity, connection with others, expectation, team vision and identity, evidence that you can see, quality of life, comfort in the workplace affects productivity. Culture defines you as a person, basically your identity, belongingness, traditions, did I say that? Creates foundation. It's my framework for how I see the world. Do you want me to keep going? You've got a lot of engagement in here.
That's great.
Helps to live with others, employee retention. That's a good one. Yeah, life balance and happiness. Trust. Better to understand others and enhance communication. A pattern, you know what to expect.
Wow, great.
Yeah, there's so much. I can keep going or I can let you take over.
Yeah, these are all great. Wow.
Unified sense of vision and purpose. Another good one. It's really good. Yep.
Yeah.
It creates cohesion, allows me to plan and effectively work with my team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just keep going till they all come in. It's more.
Oh, okay then.
Yeah.
All right. Important for building healthy relationships of any kind. Culture creates consistency. It can limit improvement or empower it. Reality of an office. Let's see. Sense of self and purpose. Culture is important because it creates social norms. To have compassion and empathy for others provides a common understanding and expectations. It guides me, informs my values, and lets me know what others' values are. Let's see. Sets the tone for the work environment. Healthy culture equals healthy work environment. This is a good comment. We talk about culture a lot, but don't often see it lived out in the workplace. Let's see. I'll be most productive in a culture that fits with my beliefs. Important to understand the differences in other people. You just shut me up whenever you want, Susan, because
Okay, these,
you got a lot coming in.
yeah, they're all so good. It's just so great.
Sense of belonging. We got a lot of reoccurring themes here. Tells me what's happening in the organization, good or bad. Limits bias. Culture determines what behaviors are acceptable in the group, creates engagement. It's an avenue to relate to others, offers security and safety. You can buy into team missions. There, gives space to breathe, connects different skill sets, reflects and influences individual behaviors at an organization. Yes, someone said it would be awesome to have all these responses collected and shared. I agree. That's awesome.
Yes, I hope we
Uh,
can.
helps me to move towards others, value and character. I'm hearing, yeah, I'll just go ahead and stop because I don't want to take up all your time. You got a lot to cover.
This is great. Oh, thank you so much, everybody. Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, well, great. So I know why culture is important to you, so thank you so much. So changing culture now. So thinking about changing culture or creating the culture that we want can feel very overwhelming. I mean, how do we do it when it seems so unwieldy? And how could something like self-reflection that seems so small change culture that seems so big? Well, we're not talking about changing other people or trying to make others act the way we want them to. We can influence, but we simply cannot control the beliefs, attitudes, or actions of others that lead to their consistent, observable patterns of behavior. We're talking about self-reflecting on ourselves. So good or bad, however our own beliefs, attitudes, and actions show up in behavior, well, we influence the people around us, and that's what makes a culture. It all starts with us as individuals. So self-reflection is one way to uncover those consistent, observable patterns of behaviors in ourselves that contribute to our organization's culture. So author Brian H. McGill says, one person can really make a difference. Each person is a revolution. So notice that I'm putting a red circle around what symbolizes the leader of an organization. So that is the person at the top of the org chart. So thinking about influencing others with our consistent, observable patterns of behaviors, we will see in the workplace, in our families, and in the world, in our communities, that leaders have a huge influence in creating and changing culture. So I'd like to run a poll right now. How many here are in leadership positions? Now, of course, we're all leaders in Lean, but in your position, in your job description, how many actually lead people as part of your job? Let's go ahead and run that poll. Thank you.
Susan, it's Allie here. We have about 400 people that have answered so far. I'm going to give it a few extra seconds and then I'll share the results.
Okay. Okay, great. So about 42% are leaders and 58% are not in leadership positions. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. All right. Well, so we can all change culture through behavior, but leaders set the tone for our organizations. So leaders, your direct reports are watching you and they will mirror what they see you do. And self-reflection is a way for all of us, including our influential leaders, to uncover those patterns of observable behaviors we bring with us into the workplace. Now, incidentally, at Toyota, leaders only advance in the company if they practice continuous improvement of self through self-reflection. Okay, so we know what self-reflection is. We're clear on what culture is in regard to consistent observable patterns of behavior. We know what behavior is. Those are the actions, attitudes, and beliefs that we bring with us. And so now let's get down to the nitty-gritty where we put this learning into action. We do this by using the Plan, Do, Check, Act model. Well, for some of us, we know what that is, and for others, it might be new to us. So let's just determine and define what PDCA is, Plan, Do, Check, Act. This is an acronym for Plan, Do, Check, Act, and it is an improvement cycle based on the scientific method of proposing a change in a process, implementing a change, measuring the results, and taking appropriate action according to lean.org. So this model goes all the way back to Galileo in the 1600s to the 1930s, where Dr. Walter Sheward adapted the scientific method for industry. In the 1950s, W. Edwards Deming modified the model for product design. And then also in the 1950s, Toyota used PDCA as a foundation for quality control, total quality control, and quality circle activities. It's also known as the Deming cycle after W. Edwards Deming, who introduced the concept in the 1950s. We also know it as PDCA, where the S stands for study. So the PDCA cycle has 4 stages. Plan, where we determine the goals and changes needed to reach them. Do, we implement the changes. In check, we evaluate the results in terms of performance. And in act, we standardize and stabilize the change or begin the cycle again, depending on the results. So PDCA is an iterative design and management method used in business for the control and continuous improvement of processes and products. And what I'd like to show you today is how it can be used to continuously improve behavior. So in the plan stage, we're going to choose a behavior to practice. In the do stage, we practice the behavior, so we do it. In check, we take a look at the results. And in act, we decide what to do next based on what we learned in the check phase. So we start in the plan stage and we choose a behavior. Well, how do I know which behaviors to continuously improve? Well, there are all kinds of places you can look. So before we dive into this, up in the right-hand corner of the slides coming up next, including this one, you're going to see the PDCA cycle indicating where we are in the cycle by highlighting the cycle that we're in. So we're currently in the plan stage. Now, some sources we can draw on to help us choose a behavior to practice include the following. You can look at your company's core values. You can look at your organizational competencies. You can look at the cultural goals of your agency or your own. You can ask your colleagues, your coworkers, which behaviors do you think I need to practice to influence our culture? And there is a really great Harvard Business Review exercise called How Are You Perceived at Work? And I'm going to have our moderators pop this in the chat right now. This is not for wimps. This is a pretty tough exercise to do, but if you're up for it, it's really a great way to see how you're perceived at work. And you can ask your friends and family members, especially if you have a 13-year-old in your house or you have one in your neighborhood, you can ask. I'm sure they would be happy to let you know where you need to improve. So we look at these sources because as human beings, we are really bad scientists when it comes to how we view ourselves and how we show up at work. We normally think we're doing better than we really are or worse than we really are. So these sources can help us get fresh eyes to help us gather whatever data we need on ourselves to determine our baseline, to see if there really is even a problem to solve, or help us determine what the gap is between where we are and where we want to be. So in defining a gap, we're looking at what's really happening what our goal is, and that's where our gap is. So we might want to revive a standard that we have backslid in, like maybe being curious at work. Maybe we aren't doing that anymore. We want to revive that standard, or maybe we want to improve our current state. So for our time together today, we're going to pick a behavior to run through our self-reflection tool. And that behavior is something we can all relate to, and that is active listening. Okay, so what is active listening? According to this definition, active listening is listening in a way that allows us to hear what a person says while seeking to understand the meaning and the intent. And so we hear what they say, but we also want to be paying attention to what they mean and the intent behind their words. So according to this definition, let's run a poll and get an idea of how many here feel they are currently actively listening. So your choices are going to be that you've never attempted it, that you occasionally actively listen, that you usually actively listen, or that you consistently actively listen, according to this definition.
Hi, Susan, Allie here. We have about 50% that have answered so far. We'll give it a few extra seconds and then share the results.
Thanks, Allie. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so we got some folks that haven't tried it, some that occasionally do it. 65% usually actively listen, and about 12% consistently do that. Thank you so much. Okay, so we are in the plan stage. And if anyone is familiar with Plan, Do, Check, Act, you spend a lot of time in the plan stage so you can set yourself up for the thing you're going to try. All right, so now we're going to fill out our self-reflection tool. And this tool is actually a big table in a Word document that you will receive as a handout at the end of the session. Now, for the purposes of this presentation, we're going to fill it out one section at a time, one small bite at a time. So here we go. So the first section of the self-reflection tool, we are going to put in today's date. Now, today is not Friday, but we fill it out on a Friday. So we're going to pretend that today is Friday, the 28th, because we're planning on what we're going to do next week. Okay, so for next week, which is going to be week 1, the behavior that we're going to practice is active listening. So we're planning today for next week. All right, so then next, what we're going to do is identify enablers. We're still in the plan stage, so let's talk about enablers. What are those? Well, an enabler is something that makes it possible for a particular thing to happen or be done according to the Cambridge Dictionary. So if we're going to be thinking about ourselves when we do this, what actions are going to help us succeed? Now, here are some common enablers for active listening. We've got asking open-ended questions. We can paraphrase what we hear the person saying in our own words, and we can reflect the feelings. So remember, we're thinking about what they're saying, but also what they mean. So here, these are some common enablers. And so I'd like to open up the chat. What are some other enablers that you know of that can make us successful in active listening? Go ahead and throw those in the chat.
Okay, I'm seeing eye contact, positive body language, focus on understanding, get rid of distractions, eye contact again, limit distractions, common theme, managing facial expressions, pausing, paraphrase back to the speaker, full attention, breathing, stop analyzing what they're saying, daily check-ins, tell me more, follow-up questions, not interrupting, Listen to understand and not reply. Non-judgmental and validation, empathy, don't stage hog. Avoid personal biases. Mirror the conversation, heart to heart and steady eye color. Not giving time limits or questioning responses. Taking notes on main points of their message. Repeat back and make sure that you actually understood what they said. Don't take things personal. Remember, other people have different perspectives and experiences. Move toward the cultural style of the sender. Keep an open mind, reflecting with the person afterward or follow up promptly. Assume good intention. Sorry.
Oh, great. No, sorry. That's great.
Yeah. Did you want me to keep going, or are you good?
Awesome. Those are great. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you. Wow. Those are all excellent. Okay. And I hope we can keep those in the chat. Those are great. So we have some enablers in mind, and let's talk about the things that get in our way of succeeding. And we're going to call those derailers. Okay. So we are still in the plan stage, and now we are talking about derailers. A derailer is a thing that keeps a plan or process from succeeding, according to the Cambridge Dictionary. Okay, so we're going to be asking ourselves, what actions prevent our success? So we're in our self-reflection tool. We have our enablers, and now we're going to add our derailers. Here are some common derailers. Interrupting. Somebody mentioned earlier, don't interrupt. Interrupting is a derailer with active listening. Offering your opinion when somebody is talking is a derailer. And defending your own position when someone is talking is a derailer. So I'd like to hear in the chat again now, what are some other derailers that come to mind that are going to prevent us from being successful in active listening?
Multitasking, explaining yourself, changing the topic, thinking about what to say next, rolling your eyes, becoming emotional, rushing, changing the subject, being closed off to new ideas, again with bias, having presumptions, that what about isms, ADHD, standoffish, someone interrupting me, not paying attention, being dismissive and closed-minded, speaking louder than the other person, getting caught in the details, thinking of contradictions without hearing the other person out. Yeah. ADHD is not a derailer. Good comment. Let's see, assuming my cultural norms and applying to the other. Let's see. Environmental factors, trying to solve issues, making it about what I did or what I went through versus hearing the other person's experience. Not being open to their cultural beliefs. Changing the subject.
Yes.
Rehearsing
Great.
a script to respond while the other person's still speaking.
We've all been there. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. Oh, these are great.
They're awesome.
Okay. All right. So we've identified some enablers for active listening and some derailers. So now we're going to identify opportunities to practice active listening. And here's what this looks like. All right. So we have our enablers and our derailers. We're practicing. Today is Friday the 28th for next week, for week 1. So we're going to look at next week's calendar and choose 3 opportunities to practice. This is just an example, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're just going to use Monday as an example. You're going to invite a coach to observe you, and I'll explain what that is in a moment. And today on Friday the 28th, you're also going to schedule a 15-minute reflection time with your coach for next Friday, a week from today. So you're going to reflect on what happens next week on next Friday with your coach. Now, here's what I mean by a coach. A coach can be a trusted supervisor. The key word is trusted. A trusted supervisor, a trusted coworker, or a real coach. If you're going to have your supervisor observe you, this is not for performance. This is not for evaluating you. And we'll talk more about that later. Now we're still in the plan stage. You're going to look at your calendar for next week and mark on your self-reflection tool the days and situations where you can practice your chosen behavior. Again, for this exercise today, we are choosing active listening. So here's Monday of next week. I'm going to be thinking about a situation. Let's see, on Monday, I actually have a coaching session with my director. So I'm going to be thinking about other opportunities, 2 more opportunities where I can practice. So now in the chat, thinking about what you have coming up next week, what opportunities do you have at work or at home where you can practice active listening? Go ahead and put those in the chat. Some opportunities you can think of next week where you could practice active listening.
Team meeting, one-on-one with soup, speaking with your children or your spouse. I'm just giving a moment because they're coming in quick.
Great.
Unit meetings, leadership meetings, client calls, trainings, during a walk, listening to your family, talking with clients, a family party, listening to my daughter, while talking with a coworker, customer inquiries, discussing procedures in your trainings or team meetings, your doctor or your dentist.
Good one.
Trivia night with friends, an open session family meeting. One-on-one again with your soup, a mentoring meeting, parent-teacher conference, conversations with your spouse, physical therapy appointment. Well, at a Halloween potluck.
Great.
That sounds fun. All right.
Awesome. And that's a challenge, not getting distracted by the costumes. So that's a
Right.
great opportunity. Okay, everybody, thank you. All right, so we are still in the plan phase. And now what we need to do is get a little more specific about what we're going to do to practice active listening. So when doing PDCA, it's best to get as focused and specific as possible. So here, we're going to be trying something during one of our opportunities in practicing active listening. So we're going to plan one thing to try. And if I don't know what I'm going to try, maybe I don't have any ideas for active listening, like an actual specific example, you can Google. And we want to choose something that's easy to remember, something you can write on a Post-it note or on your hand or something that you can just easily practice. We want to keep this nice and simple, not too complicated. So in this example, my coaching session with my director on Monday, thinking about what I want to try, I'm going to say, tell me more about that. And so somebody mentioned this earlier as far as an enabler, an actual example. Tell me more about that. Say more about that. That's a nice open-ended question or phrase that I can say to my director when they're talking about something. This is easy to remember, not too complicated. All right, so we are finally done with the plan stage. We know what we're going to do, when we're going to do it. So now we're going to move on to the do. And this is real easy. We did all that planning. We're going to do it. So we're going to practice the behavior with three opportunities. It could be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It could be 3 times on Monday, whatever is going to work. We review our enablers and our derailers, and we try the one thing for the coaching session with our director. Tell me more about that. Okay, so we've done it. Our coach was there. They observed us, and now we move on to check. All right, so here is where we reflect alone on what happened. We reflect alone. So we can ask ourselves some questions while we're reflecting. Did I actually practice? So we know that things happen in life. You might have attempted or intended to practice and the meeting was canceled, or you forgot, or something happened, you just got cold feet and didn't know what to do. That happens. Was your coach there to observe you? Maybe your coach couldn't make it, and that's okay. They don't have to come to everyone, but hopefully they could make it to at least one of your sessions where you're practicing. And what was the reaction to what you tried? What happened when you said, tell me more about that? And were any of your derailers present? Why or why not? So we're not going to do a deep dive into root cause analysis, but we'll be thinking about why we might have interrupted when we didn't intend to, or why we offered our opinions when we didn't want to, and why you might have defended your position, why they were there, why they weren't there. What did you do where those derailers weren't there? And only you're going to know. So in Lean, of course, we connect with the subject matter experts. We don't assume. We ask the people that are doing the work. And in this case, it's you. You're the subject matter expert that's only going to know why something is happening. So we do that thinking and we add it to this section. We reflect on what happened. All right. So we reflected on what happened. Ideally, we had 3 opportunities this week to practice, next week, active listening, and we reflected. So now we're moving on to act. Okay, so in act, we decide what to try next, depending on what happened in what happened in do and what we reflected on in check. So here is where you're going to reflect with your coach. This is next Friday. It's at the end of the week. You've done your practicing. They've observed you. Your coach is going to, number one, set safety. We have professional, personal, emotional, psychological safety here. And there is a standard work document that I'm going to share with you at the end of the session here. So you're going to have your self-reflection tool. Your coach is going to use that standard work document. This is very important. You're going to give your coach a high-level overview of what happened. And you're going to have a discussion about what your coach observed. And if this is your one-up or somebody in authority that can remove barriers for you, they're going to ask you what barriers need to be removed. Because that's what our leaders do. They remove barriers for us. Okay, so the standard work is going to be used by your coach. They're going to guide you through these questions. They're going to ask you, what did you learn? They're going to ask you, what will you try next? And they're going to ask you, how will you know you're improving? So as far as what we're going to do next, so this is a kind of a decision point here. Am I going to repeat what I tried? I'll probably have another session with my director. Maybe I want to try it again. I'm going to say, tell me more about that. Maybe I want to try that with someone else. Maybe I want to try something else like paraphrasing or reflecting feelings. It really depends on how long it takes us individually to solidify a behavior that we're trying to develop and grow. And this is where the PDCA cycle comes in. So PDCA is a cycle. This is an improvement cycle based on the scientific method of proposing a change in a process, implementing the change, measuring the results, and taking appropriate action. So the big question is, how long does it take to change a behavior? We've heard all kinds of different opinions about this, so I'd like to know what you think. So let's go ahead and run the poll. Your choices are going to be 1 day, 10 days, 21 days, or 66 days. How long do you think it takes to change a behavior?
Susan, it's Allie here. About 50% of the people have noted, and most are saying 21 days. I'm going to leave it open a few minutes longer and then share the results.
Susan, while those numbers are climbing, I'll just say there's been a couple of reoccurring comments that say it also can depend on how long you've had the behavior.
Good one. Love it. Yeah, because boy, we get things ingrained, don't we? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So we have most folks are saying 21 days. Yeah. A few 1 days, a few 10 days, and some 66 days. All right. So it actually takes 2 to 8 months to change a behavior. So we might want to practice a behavior for a while. So the more we do something, the better we get at it. Now, we choose a behavior to practice, and we're going to be practicing it several times. Aristotle said we are what we repeatedly do. So we're going to run a behavior we're trying to improve or change or develop a few times. Now, there was a doctor of philosophy, behavioral science, and health named Philippa Lally. She did a research study, and she found out that it took anywhere from 18 to 254 days for people to form a new habit. So in other words, we want to set our expectations appropriately. And the truth is, it will probably take us anywhere from 2 months to 8 months to build a new behavior into our lives, not 21 days like we've heard. So anyway, I just think that's fascinating because that's what I thought, 21 days. Okay, there's the timer going off because I'm the time stickler. Okay, so everyone here is uniquely made. And the model I've talked about today is not the only model for self-reflection. I did try to find an app and I couldn't find a good app for self-reflection, but there are some things out there. Now, if you like something structured and disciplined, you're going to love this. If not, Google self-reflection and see what others have tried. This is not the only way, but I want to talk about a warning about self-reflection and behavior change. Self-reflection leading to behavior change requires these things. You have to have the want to. Nobody can make us do anything. You have to have the want to. It's going to require probably some deep thinking. It'll require some dedicated time, probably about 45 minutes a week or more, depending on how deep you want to go. It's going to require some patience. So we said, according to Philippa Lally, it's about 2 to 8 months. It's going to take some courage and some vulnerability. You're going to need a supportive coach. And more than anything, you're going to need psychological, professional, and emotional safety. All too often we see lean tools used as a weapon. This is not a weapon. If you don't have psychological, professional, and emotional safety, don't do it. Okay, so we've heeded the warnings. We've got a good coach in place that's going to follow that standard work. And we're about to start a self-reflection practice. So how is this going to change culture? Well, as we said, culture is consistent, observable patterns of behavior in organizations. Observable patterns of behavior. So you're going to have at least one person observing you. You're going to impact that person, the one that you're interacting with and the one that's observing you. And anyone else you share your learnings with are going to be impacted. If they decide to practice self-reflection because of your modeling, they will impact others, and so on. If an influential leader is modeling self-reflection, others that respect that person will want to model it as well. We're not talking about changing other people or trying to make other people do what we want them to do. We can influence, but we cannot control anyone else but ourselves. We can only control our behaviors that are our beliefs, attitudes, and actions that lead to our consistent, observable patterns of behavior. So, how can you make a difference? So in the chat, what I'd like to know is that you're the person that can make the difference. You are the revolution. What is a behavior that you might want to practice and self-reflect on to change your organization's culture? Let's put those in the chat now.
Patience, active listening, pause before responding, manage up, increase mindfulness, sharing actions and following through, more patience and active listening. We can't get enough of that, right? See, being more consistent, remove and ignore distractions, don't project, serenity prayer, stop speculating, be present, capture lessons learned, practicing grace with others, suspending judgment for processes that are not my own, empathizing, listen to frontline staff, honor, respect, compassion, focus, follow up. Fully listen, compassion, and understand, get out of my own head about things and just listen. No gossip. Have good intent. Contribute and participate more in workplace discussions. Stay in my own lane. Assume good intent. Those are great answers. Seeing people's needs and their perspective as important as my own. Praise and reinforce positive behaviors. Encourage and project positivity when there's negativity. Be willing to help. Build strong relationships based on integrity and trust. Forward action and thought when feeling obstructed. Intentional time set aside with other staff to build professional relationships and be able and available, honoring the momentum of the trust.
Awesome.
Volunteer to help. Yep. These are great.
Great. All right. Well, we're getting close to time here, and I want to make sure we leave time for questions. And so let's review the goals real quick, make sure we met them for today. If you could just throw a yes or no in the chat. One of our goals was to understand what self-reflection is, learn about the behaviors, the benefits of self-reflection and behaviors, learning how to use the PDCA self-reflection tool. Did we explore how to apply the learnings outside of work? And did we have fun?
You're getting a lot of yeses, all yeses.
Okay.
Wonderful. Yes to all. Awesome. All yeses, Susan.
Okay. Thanks so much, everybody. All right. So I'm Susan Hayden, and I would like you to reach out to me for more information on self-reflection, and let's open it up for questions and answers, or we'll have questions. I'm planning on having answers.
All right, we've got a couple good questions here.
Okay.
All right, so how do you handle things when someone's culture is not a good mix and then causes disruption in the atmosphere?
Ooh, someone's culture is not a good mix and causes disruption. Well, the way that I'm thinking about this is that I'm in charge of what I do. And I think that's where my power is being in charge of me. We were all in those situations where someone is not acting the way that we want them to. And so I think that how I would handle it would be focusing on me. If I'm a leader, there's probably an opportunity to coach a person that I see maybe acting against the culture I want to create. But for me personally, I'm probably going to focus on me. And the reason I say that is that none of us want to be made wrong. And the other thing is that we're all learning in our own time, and we're all growing at our own rate. And that's kind of one of the tenets of Lean, is that we really let everybody grow on their own journey and make that discovery themselves. Otherwise, I don't know if we learn. I don't learn very well when somebody tells me what I'm doing wrong. I learn when I can observe the behaviors around me and then adopt those behaviors in my own time. That's what I think.
That's awesome. Thank you. I got another good question. If someone's new to self-reflection, is there a specific area that you would suggest they focus to start?
Yeah, definitely. I think self-awareness is the place that you start, and also really doing that deep thinking about the things that you want to see different in yourself. We all have those things that we want to do differently. So I would say really working on that self-awareness. Um, I mean, meditation or whatever it is you do, to really think about how you're showing up, and also thinking about the reactions that you're getting from people. So somebody was saying, get out of your own head and paying attention to what's going on with that other person. Sometimes we miss those things because we're thinking about us and what we want to say. But I think people will tell you, if not directly, indirectly, what they're experiencing when you're with them.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. We have another good question. What are some tips for controlling one's emotional response to triggering behavior? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I can only speak for myself. I actually practice Buddhism. And so a big part of Buddhism is breathing in and breathing out. And it sounds really simple, and that probably sounds really trite, but that's what I do. So I can be a very reactive person. I'm very passionate. I have a lot of emotions running around in me all the time. I feel things deeply. And so one thing that I have been practicing is breathing in and breathing out. And when you do that, you breathe in and you say to yourself, I'm breathing in. And when you're breathing out, you say, I'm breathing out. And that's what you do. And it might sound funny, but for me, it really works. Just really, practicing that pause and realizing that I don't have to do anything right now. I don't have to react. I don't have to say anything. There's another really good, there's a video I saw, I think it's Dr. Levry, and I can look this up and maybe have it sent out, but it's called how to how to not react. I think it's called How to Not React, Dr. Levry, and it's a really great YouTube that also talks about the kind of the price you pay when we react, and the relationships we destroy when we react instead of pausing, just waiting a couple of beats and breathing. So that's what I've been finding works for me. And again, everybody's different. That's what I do.
That's awesome. Wonderful. Thank you. There's another good question. What do you suggest when another person's perception is very different than yours?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that is another challenge. I think for me, I really like hearing different perspectives, and I would want to find out more why, why they feel that way, and what about that thing is important to them. So one exercise I've seen done is when we were in the real world, like the physical world, is put out a bunch of magazines and pick one that you don't like. Like for me, I'm not a big sports person. So I would pick a magazine on sports and sit down and read it and find out why sports are important to particular people. It could be anything. It could be a fashion magazine, somebody who doesn't care about fashion. So I would say for me, really wanting to dig in and find out why that particular perspective is important to that person, and try to understand why, what their life has been like that makes it important to them.
That's awesome. Thank you, Susan. This was a really great session, so relative in the workplace and personal life. So I just thank you so much for bringing this informative information at such a relevant topic and easy to apply. So thank you so much.